Welcome to KabadiNews.com. My name is John Wee from San Francisco. Today I have Leah Suntoso from New York, an attorney specializing in immigration. How are you, Leah?
Very well, thank you.
How can that diplomat apply for a green card?
Okay, so then aside from the 50 ways that we have discussed before, well, it's a lot more than 50 actually. So we're talking about diplomats in a general sense, A1, A2, G1, G2, and we're talking about Section 13, okay? So first of all, the one thing that we all must remember is that anybody in the United States would be able to follow the path that the Immigration and Nationality Act already set for getting permanent residence. So it's like the process is not different for everybody. It's not discriminatory towards anybody. But then for people that came here and last arrived, that's the key, last arrived as a A1, A2, or G1 or G2, and they have fallen out of status, they could apply for Section 13 as a diplomat. Now, what is Section 13? So first of all, in addition to there are compelling reasons why you or your immediate family member cannot return to your country of origin, okay? And then you also have to establish why your adjustment of status would be of national interest of the United States. Now, one thing that's also important is that this does not apply to everybody, meaning that your duty primarily must be diplomatic or semi-diplomatic, not custodial, clerical, or secretarial job, okay? So you have to be first out of status, and then number two, you cannot or you are unable to return, okay? And then number three, you have to prove that it is of national interest of the United States for you to stay here. And then obviously, you're admissible and and then with that, then it comes, you're a person of good moral character and things like that. And there's one particular requirement is that your admission to the United States will not be contrary to the national welfare or safety or security of the government of the United States, which is, unless you come from, T4 countries, I think it's not going to be that difficult to establish that.
How does one apply?
Well, first of all, you have to address, first of all, it's very important to understand that Section 13 has a very, very, very small quota, okay? Very small quota. And the wait is excruciatingly long, okay? So in my experience, what happens is that while you're waiting for that Section 13 to come through, people always find a different way to basically adjust status. That's the reality, okay? Now, the only key to that is that, everyone that basically works for the embassy or the foreign missions, okay, they have a special ID, and then there is a PID number, okay? So then that personal identification number, then you basically prove that you're out of status or your tour of duty ended. There are two types of additional forms that you have to basically submit. And, that's the clerical part. That's not difficult. What is most difficult to prove is what would be, because remember, the initial law for Section 13 was made in 1957, okay? And I've read denials in cases before that the standard that was applied back then is different than now. And then obviously things in 1957 is quite different than what it is in 2020. And because there aren't that many cases, it doesn't seem like they have actually updated the standard or things like that. Now, judging from that, what would be the best tip when you apply for Section 13? Create a very, very long and detailed explanation on why, for example, you are unable to return to the country. Now, please remember that unable to return to the country, it's not the same with asylum, okay? Unable to return, it's unable to return. It's not fear of persecution. That's one thing. So it's like people sometimes mix that up. And then national interest, then you have to explain why you would give national interest. So then, for example, when you were serving as a diplomat, then you did this, you did that, you know, it's like you try to engage the community. What would be your role within your own community when you're working, and, you know, and things like that. And then, you know, person of good moral character, I mean, that's a little bit easier to do. I mean, get recommendation letters from people that you worked with before, and, you know, it's like, and then basically you just have to document. It's not an easy case to build, although the requirement seems to be pretty loose if you look at the website.
So are you saying that if one wants to stay here to apply while they are still in status, right?
My suggestion would be, if you have other ways, and for people at this stature, it's very common and expected for them to be able to have a different avenue to get their papers aside from Section 13.
I see. Okay. So, all right. What would be your recommendation for people or diplomat who wants to stay in the United States?
First of all, before you basically look at Section 13, look at the other ways that you could get permanent residence before you resort to Section 13 and wait for a very, very, very long time. That would be my honest advice.
Okay. Thank you, Leah, for your suggestion, and for our Kabari readers. Thank you again. Until we meet. Thank you. Bye-bye.